Jean-Pierre Polnareff. He has encountered Dio, the name meaning God, on a staircase. And today, he has met Diavolo, the name meaning devil, on the bottom of the staircase. It's a very fascinating build-up for this very moment. And it's kind of funny that there's many people that have read or watched JoJo to this very point and don't realize just where Araki probably was going with Polnareff's character. You know, seeing his development, how much he has changed since Part 3. And as a refresher, just to remind everybody, remember, he was on a quest to avenge his sister back in Part 3. And you could just see how much he's changed and got attached to his buddies back in Egypt. You know, with Jotaro, you know, traveling with him. You know, Kakyoin. And just seeing, like, little scenes throughout Part 3 to now what we got in this episode, it all comes, like, full circle. Polnareff has encountered the two strongest entities of all of JoJo on a staircase. And it's kind of interesting. It's basically saying that Polnareff, he is literally in between both heaven and hell. And that's kind of saying that he had a choice. Like, who would he fall to? Would he fall to God? Or would he, you know, fall to the devil? Or actually go to God, climb to God, and then fall to the devil. Regardless, though, he had two options. And he's always been the one that encountered the big bad of any part he's in for the first time. When you think about it, he was the one that encountered Dio. When Dio first popped up in Part 3, he was on top of a staircase. You see this blinding flashlight come over him, which represents his just majesty, his glorious appearance. And you see, you know, Polnareff, he looks up at the man. He looks up trying to figure out what's going on. And as he tries to climb a staircase, he's reset back down to where he's supposed to be. And he cannot climb the staircase whatsoever. He was the first person to really come in contact with Dio's world stand. Then we have this episode of JoJo Part 5. Polnareff is once again on a staircase. However, his position is very different. He is on top of the staircase looking down at the person below. And it's not saying that he is God, it's just saying that he's looking down to where the devil is, and you see the devil slowly walking up, creeping from the shadows to get up to him and drag him down. Like I said, it's a very symbolic message. You know, the character Polnareff encountering God and the devil throughout his journey in the story. And I think it's very clear what Araki was going with when it came to that. You know, just with the visuals of both scenes, to him standing on a staircase, it's symbolic. And I just love little things like that. I love just seeing little references or nods and stuff that's been built up for a very long time. Like even the scene with Diavolo's introduction in this episode to Dio's introduction in Part 3 are very similar. Just the only difference is one's on top of the stairs, one's below the stairs, and you have a lighting difference of dark and light. But besides that, they're very identical. But okay, let's get into something else I want to point out, which is kind of fascinating. If you did not realize yet, as we know, we found out that Jorno's father was Dio, and Dio, since his name means God, you can kind of look at Jorno as the son of God, which, if you think about in biblical terms, the son of God is Jesus. So you could say that Jorno is Jesus going up against the devil, which is Diavolo. That's cool. That's a very fascinating piece of symbolism that Araki has been building up throughout the journey of Part 5. But okay, I'll stop there though. Let's get into what happened to just the amazing reveal of Diavolo and what he looks like. So, it's been a long time coming. Many of us have wanted to see what Diavolo looks like, and it's such a radical difference compared to Doppio. As we've already seen Doppio as a character, he's a very shy boy. He's a cute little buttercup, basically. And he does have this meaner side to him, but overall seems like a nice dude. Then, we finally get to see the man behind the curtain. We get to see who is the one that's been leading everything throughout the series. Yes, I mean series. Because without Diavolo, we wouldn't have had Part 3. That's basically what this episode tried to make very clear to all of us, which I will get into. But the point is that Diavolo, his character introduction. When he's walking up the stairs and he's talking to, Polnareff, and you see him just use his, ability, he uses King Crimson, and you just see how the entire world kind of, starts fast-forwarding a little bit, and you just see how he lifts off his shirt, and when he takes it off, and when you see his hair come out, it's just an amazing scene. I just love the transition from Doppio to Diavolo. It's a great moment, and I think that many fans have been looking forward to this scene for a very long time, since, it came out. Oh man, I think part 5 came out, it came out in the 90s, so yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's just been a gradual build-up for this very moment, and many fans are probably just extremely excited to finally just see stuff like this animated. But anyways, Diavolo. It was a very scary moment. There was a lot of tension with his introduction, and I think many in that moment realized how scary it was. Because as soon as this scene happens, there's no music. That was something that was very eerie about that scene. There was no music. Nothing in the background, just walking of footsteps, and then Diavolo talking, and then Polnareff, responding to him. The entire scene is very tense, because, as we know, Polnareff, his journey is technically over. I mean, he is here to deliver an arrow, but overall his journey is kind of over. He is someone that has had his role fulfilled already in part 3. He's got to move on past everything that's happened in part 3. He's lived a life now, and, he's now delivered the arrow. So you could kind of say that his journey is effectively done. And so it's worrisome, because we know for a fact when it comes to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, characters are put on the chopping block. It's been a constant reminder since the very beginning, when the series first began, that no character is relatively safe. Even the main JoJo's can die. I mean, Jonathan died in part 1, right at the end. He died, technically, thanks to Dio. So, I mean, when you think about it, it is something that many of us have to keep in mind. So, Polnareff in that state where he's in a wheelchair, he has one eye missing, his arm is messed up, he's just completely in a messed up state. And when Diavolo's that close, it's over. And that's what he knew in that moment. He let Diavolo get that close, so there's literally nothing he can do, because he knows how scary it is for a time-related power. I mean, he literally has a friend that is able to use Time Stop, or he encountered Dio, which also had that ability. He came, hand-to-hand with Dio. He got to understand and experience how scary that was. So seeing the man actually realize how screwed he was in that moment, he's like, oh man, I let him get that close, it's over, and you just see him bite his finger, and you just see blood start dripping. It's a moment of desperation, which shows how skilled Polnareff is, but also how royally screwed he was. There was nothing he really could do. And let's get right into that. Basically, Polnareff encountered Diavolo only once in the past, and in the brief exchange that messed up his body completely, we found out Diavolo was the one that caused him to be in a wheelchair like he is. In a brief exchange he had in the past, when he was searching for the arrows, he lost his body, and he lost his limbs and all that, he lost everything. And you had it to where he realized that he had a time-related ability before lights were put out. So he was able to grasp the danger of Diavolo. He was someone that was truly a threat, someone you could not just encounter with ease. And it really does make you wonder if someone like Jotaro or Dio, how would they fare against someone like Diavolo, which that's food for thought in a bit. But anyways, he was able to calculate and figure out that yes, he does have a time-related ability. So seeing him bite his finger and seeing the blood drip down on his leg, where he could determine when time has been altered in some way, he struck at him. Which, if you think about it, this is the first time that we've seen Diavolo actually take damage. It was Doppio that was fighting episodes ago. We didn't really get to see Diavolo really fight. And so when you really think about it, this is the first time that someone like Diavolo with his broken stand got injured. And it probably is very impressive, because he's normally someone that can completely counter something like that, but someone like Polnareff was able to easily figure out a weak spot of how to fight against it, and that's incredibly crazy. And it just shows once again that Silver Chariot is not a weak stand. Many might assume it might be, but it really isn't in the grand scheme of things. So Polnareff is turned into a donut. It's a common theme, really, in JoJo. When it comes to really important characters just going lights out, it's something that's happened to Leon, it's something that has happened to, Kakyoin, it's something now that's happened to Polnareff, it's happened to, Bruno. So, I mean, it is an ongoing theme, and usually when someone is donutted, it's pretty much means they're dead. The only reason how Bruno survived was just because of Jorno really having just a broken stand ability, but even then, he wasn't really able to save Bruno, just extend his life temporarily until he's in the state he's in right now, which I'll get into that as well. But, yeah, it's pretty sad to just see an iconic character that's been around since Part 3 finally meet his ends. And it's not just that either. Also, he did actually manage to do something. We don't really know what, but he managed to actually somehow have the arrow go into his silver chariot, and we see something pop up at the end. And it really makes you wonder, what is that? Is Polnareff still alive in some way, or is that his stand doing something very weird? It's just something that we really don't understand at this time, but something did really happen at the end that was very weird, and is quite the cliffhanger for the show. So anyways, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the little details, okay? So, I want to talk about the situation with how Diavolo is the cause of everything. Without Diavolo, we wouldn't have had Part 3. That's effectively what this episode wanted to let you know. Is that it was thanks to Diavolo finding the arrows that eventually led it to where Dio was able to gain a stand ability, and then all the others were able to gain stand abilities as well. It's thanks to the arrows. So, because of that, the arrows being given to Inaba, it made it to where Part 3 happened, and then what happened with Holly and all that, etc. So all of the horrific things that kind of happened was thanks to Diavolo. He is the cause of it all. And it's not just that either. It's also the fact that, in a way, you could say that all the characters that did die throughout Part 3 is the cause of him as well. Because if you didn't give those arrows up, then obviously certain characters wouldn't have died. Kakyoin, for example. And you could extend it even further than that. You could also look at Part 4 as well. We know that Part 4 characters, they were able to gain a stand because of an arrow as well, which once again was an arrow that was given to Inaba, and then she, they apparently got a hold of it. So when you look at all these little things, it's thanks to Diavolo why even Part 3 and Part 4 happened to begin with, and why stands started to really pop up. So he really is a devil. He is someone that has caused a lot of chaos throughout the world in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So he is definitely a major threat, more so in some cases than Dio. Which, by the way, this is what I want to talk about. When it comes to King Crimson, the ability that, Diavolo has, the stand, it makes you wonder, could he actually fight Dio? Would Dio stand a chance? And that's a question that's always came to my mind, honestly. Thinking about the situation, could Dio fight him, or would Diavolo completely counter Dio? Who would really win that fight? Because when you look at it, yeah, someone that's able to, time skip. They're able to fast forward time and literally, Control-Delete a certain section of time to where you don't even realize what happened. And then you have another individual that's able to completely stop time and move around freely while time is stopped and do little things. So, it makes you wonder who would really win. And if I had to assume anything, I feel like if Dio was able to use Time Stop, like if he was able to use, the world and all that, and Time Stop completely, he probably would win against Diavolo. But if Diavolo knew what Dio was capable of, I think he would counter Dio. So it really would just come down to who did the first blow to the other. And also, another thing too is Dio, the only thing that he really has to worry about is, certain things like Homlin users, which, obviously they're very rare or extinct at this point. He has to also worry about sunlight. So, in a lot of ways, Dio really, he doesn't really have many weaknesses because of just how powerful he is. And included that with a stand. So, I would think, in reality, Dio probably would win in the end, even if King Crimson is able to somehow figure out how to go around Dio's stand. But okay, with that out of the way, though, let's talk about Bruno. So Bruno, he had a very sad moment in this episode. I think many are going to get just really upset with this episode, not because it's bad, but because it's something that many of us have become very aware of. That Bruno, he's on borrowed time. He's someone that's obviously not going to probably be able to make it out of the Coliseum alive. Because he is literally a dead man walking. Golden experience that Jorno has cannot heal him. because he's technically dead. It's not just that either. It's also Bruno clearly is starting to show signs of what would happen to someone that is dead. Or if someone literally was dead and couldn't heal. He has ruptured eardrums. He's going blind. He can't really, move around properly because he is weakened. And so because of that, his body is growing rather frail. It's growing weaker and weaker as time goes on. And so because of his last fight with Sekko, it's pushed his body literally to the absolute limit. It just sped up the progress of what would have eventually happened. That's basically what was stated. And so, honestly, Bruno may have been able to accomplish a lot of things by leading his men to where they're at now, but because of that, though, he is now going to die in a different way, which could probably be a lot more painful than what his first experience was, because he was having blood loss, and it was probably so quick he was just going to die out. As for what we have going on here, the man is just slowly dying, and he can't really feel anything. You gotta imagine just how scary it is where the world is going completely black around you, where you can't hear, you can't see, and all that. It'd just be absolutely terrifying. So, it's sad. It's a sad thing what's going on with Bruno, and basically, his time is coming to an end. And there really isn't much, I think, that could be done for him, honestly. And when you really think about it. The only thing I could say that could be done is if somehow they figure out how to go back to what happened to Stroheim in Part 2. You remember Stroheim? How he became like a cyborg robot or whatever? That's a possibility. I mean, what if he got that? But jokes aside, though, Bruno, he is reaching his end, and it's sad to see such a great character in the state like he's in, where he can't even really see the main villain in front of him, which was Doppio. And also, Polnareff, too, realizing, hey, show me your stand, not even wanting to give an inch to someone that's brand new. That's pretty great, because it just shows, once again, that Polnareff has matured and grown so much as a fighter and a person, because he's not going to get close to someone, because their stand might have a certain limited range that's really effective when you get close, and because of how much he's been messed up thanks to certain stands in his journey, he didn't want to get near whoever this supposed Trish was, before he found out it was actually Diavolo. So yeah, I do think that there's just some really witty moments and some great moments throughout the episode, and I cannot wait to see where the story is going to go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.